almost a decade now. We're turning 10 years old. And over that time, we cover over 20% of Sri Lanka's top listed companies and about 1% of the Fortune 500. We focus on the people. And it is through the development of those people and the culture of an organization that we actually deliver performance. Culture, structure, people. Everything that we do, we deliver it based on this philosophy, this ethos. Any organization owes its performance to its culture. Sandbox is a performance consulting company, and what that means is we deliver sustainable business performance through augmenting people and culture in an organization. Any organization is driven by people, and Sandbox has that at its center, at its core. So it's people-powered performance. Sandbox has been in operation for close to a decade, no, almost a decade now. We're turning 10 years old. And over that time, we cover over 20% of Sri Lanka's top listed companies and about 1% of the Fortune 500. So we've done very well for ourselves in a year as a Sri Lankan company to get here. And all of that is putting us, in a niche of our own, where versus many other consulting firms out there, we focus on the people. And it is through the development of those people and the culture of an organization that we actually deliver performance each and every time. We started our journey by creating larger-than-life experiences for people. I have a background in production, so I merged that background into my background with training and consulting and created large-scale experiences that no one could actually go for and just experience, like being part of a military team, being part of an actual racing team, right, that you can go or go to golfers and cook at Nana's. And these are quintessential Sandbox experiences. And what we did in the Sandbox was you could come in and make a mistake and that would be okay. Because we are creating a place for you to fail. We are creating a place that's safe for you to perform and not make those mistakes in your business operation. So hence the name Sandbox. Pretty much like the Sandbox you get an antivirus or a Sandbox used for testing environments. Culture, structure, people. Everything that we do, we deliver it based on this philosophy, this ethos, where any organization owes its performance to its culture. When your culture is at a premium, you unlock performance unlike anything out there. Usually companies that invest in culture are 7 to 8 times more likely to outperform anyone else who hasn't invested an equal amount. And we know this, and therefore we put culture first. What we do is we deliver team cohesiveness, synergy by focusing on that mantra. Culture first. So we first take a team, we focus on their culture here, then really understand what their culture is, build their culture. Then we go into structure. Now the policies there is, does the team have the support services that it needs to deliver the performance? And then we go into people, where we develop the capabilities of the leadership, and then we go down the ladder all the way to ground floor employees and ensure that that culture can be brought into fruition. So our work is exciting. It takes us around the world. 20 plus industries have benefited from the work that we do, and we continue to do it. CSP is a game changer, because CSP, after many years of working with teams at the ground level, is a working model that helps companies unlock true potential. And I'll tell you how this works. Companies look at performance in using 2 aspects. One aspect is they look at the focus. Now, focus can be process-driven or people-driven, right? And on the other aspect, they look at the growth. And growth can be incremental or exponential. Now, when you have process-driven incremental growth, you have things like lean transformation or process changes. We've heard these words before. But if you want to go all the way to exponential growth and also focus on people at the same time, you have to start with culture. And culture, if you start, has to follow structure and then has to follow by people. So culture, structure, people makes perfect sense in that spot. And right now, with technology changing and things changing at an exponential rate, companies are looking for a viable solution. And most of them are turning to understand that, yes, although their culture has been around for years, decades. Sometimes, like the engine oil in your car, if you don't change it when it's due, and if you don't do the maintenance, how good your car is and how fantastic your engine you think is in, it might not really deliver the performance you're looking for. So that's what culture really brings to the table. So yeah, it's absolutely a game changer. COVID was the catalyst globally for companies to revisit their culture. Until COVID, it was management by sight. So as long as you could see your people and see your team in front of you, you knew they were working and they were managed. But the moment you had to trust them to work from home or work remotely, you started to understand that your culture was not at a premium. You really didn't know and you felt insecure. And this is why a company started to understand that, no, we really need to look at this culture and adapt to growing needs of people. And COVID introduced flexibility to the workplace. It really, rebranded the whole campaign, just revolutionized it. And now it has become an absolute essential in today's working environment to provide that flexibility to staff. And that is an example of culture change and culture shift. And why we say you need to keep focusing on a CSP strategy is you shouldn't wait for an emergency or catastrophe like COVID to remind you that your culture needs to be at its premium. You should be prepared for it. And for that, you need to constantly take steps, constantly reevaluate. Are you keeping up with the needs of a changing generation, with the needs of a changing world, in terms of climate, in terms of diversity, in terms of inclusion? These are all things that we have taken for granted for far too long. And now with a growing generation of young people who are not afraid to challenge it, yes, culture and some of the deficiencies of culture is being highlighted. So absolutely, COVID was a game changer for everyone, and culture, structure, people is here to stay. Culture, the competitive advantage for any organization. Culture holds everything together, whether your organization knows it or not, right? As long as there are two people working together, there's a culture. And usually cultures evolve over time. The difference with finding a methodology and following a methodology for your culture is you shift from culture by accident to culture by design. Right? And then you unlock the true potential, the premium of culture. Now, firms that really invest in culture, really check in on their culture, have given 7 to 8 times more results in terms of top line growth over a 10-year period than companies who have merely existed in terms of culture. They have doubled their workforces in that time. Right? They have close to 9 times delivered shareholder value. So these are true and documented results. Comparing companies that have actively invested in culture versus companies that have just allowed culture to evolve by accident. We call that culture by accident. And it's absolutely important because that premium is what companies are looking for today. And companies are changing with changing times, which means you are finding it hard to maintain very large workforces. And at the same time, people's capabilities and technology speeds are increasing exponentially, and companies are always in a flux. What we did last year is no longer valid this year. And how do you keep up with this change? You focus on culture and you ensure that your culture is adaptable, your culture is elastic, and your culture is not set in stone. You get used to this, and you get used to a process like CSP that allows you to constantly have an agile and relevant organization as the world continues to change. The platform Culture Pulse allows Sandbox through its consulting to truly help organizations visualize culture. Now, companies can get advice on culture, can go and find out, okay, where is my culture leaking, and try to patch those gaps. But none of this is holistic, where it does not have a scientific base to see that you're covering the entire spectrum. And Culture Pulse allows you through a scientific method to cover the entire spectrum. So we call it mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. Everything is covered, and you have no gaps. And once you do that, you can absolutely be confident that you have asked your entire organization, if you need to, as to what they feel the current culture is and what they feel the current the future culture of this organization should be, giving leadership absolute real-time views on how the organization thinks and how young leaders think, and that allows them to adapt proactively rather than waiting for high performers to leave, or the best of your company to leave, to realize, oh, we might have a problem with our culture. It's already too late. It's post-mortem. So this really allows you to proactively diagnose ahead of time and really focus on that. So the platform is revolutionizing the way heads of HR and CEOs currently using it today visualize culture, and makes the decision-making process so much easier for leadership teams, especially to do something called a bottom-up diagnostic. That means a people-led diagnostic and a top-down change. Until now, or at least with Culture Pulse, they haven't had a method to visualize where the current status quo is, where the current thought process is. So when we visualize what you think now of our company, and we visualize where you want to be, we clearly understand what the gap is and which direction that gap is. And as a leadership team, it gives us tremendous insight as to where the levers should be, what should we move, what should we play with, what should be reduced and what should be increased, and so on and so forth. Sometimes it might even be how much of this employee view have we got to change, because sometimes employees have views that are not realistic. And sometimes organizational leaders need to make proactive steps in changing the minds of employees towards stabilizing an environment. For example, if I run a security firm, and if you want to come dressed in shorts every day, or come in at any time that you want to, or sleep in late, I'm sure my customers are not going to feel very secure with you doing that job, right? And now you might be an employee who wants to join my firm thinking this, but it's information for me that you think like that. Now I can do something about it. So that's what we bring to the table, because leaders already know what to do. That's why they are there. Leaders know how to manage change. What they have been missing is the directionality and the gap, and that to be visualized in a way that makes sense, so that it is not arbitrary, it is not subjective, and it is completely objective. Sri Lanka is facing an enormous brain drain, and there's no couching this. Everybody understands this. And why this is happening is people are not leaving companies, they're leaving culture. And what culture is that? I'm sorry to say, they're leaving Sri Lanka's culture, right? I have personally been at the forefront of interviewing people who are leaving, trying to assist companies to stop the drain. And whenever you talk to someone who's going, most of them say, I love this company, I love this team, but I just can't live in this culture. And what culture is that? It's the country's culture. So culture doesn't only apply to organizations. And this is where organizations need to work together sometimes, not to compete based on culture, right? But they need to get together so that culture becomes the only competitive advantage Sri Lanka has. And to create that culture, we need to work together rather than compete and, show off, my culture is better than your culture. It's important for us to come together at this point, to ensure that we keep as much talent back in the country as possible. Sri Lanka is looking at implementing laws that will allow organizations to fire people based on performance. This has been on the cards for some time, and it looks like it's going to become a reality. Now, in this case, organizations are going to find themselves really short if they haven't focused on culture, and if they haven't really honed in on what those characteristics and norms are going to be. What are the behaviors that you have zero tolerance for? And what are the behaviors that if the writing is not on the wall, they're going to find it very hard to actually implement this golden opportunity to right-size their organizations, to ensure that they attract the right people, and to ensure that they get rid of people that are passengers, that are not delivering towards the mission and vision of the organization. So it's very important that they think about this now and prepare proactively, because when the laws do come, it will be a golden opportunity for them to truly optimize their teams for high performance. Next steps of Sandbox entails going deeper into people analytics. Sandbox has pioneered people analytics for the last half a decade in Sri Lanka and in the region. We couple people analytics with the culture work that we do. So our platform, which is called Culture Pulse, currently is used by a lot of leading companies that allow people to truly visualize culture. So no longer do you have to assume it. Now you can actually see it in front of your eyes, and we focus on something called culture directionality that tells you in what direction your culture is going. Is your culture like a family? Is your culture more towards being entrepreneurial? Is it driving market, or is your culture driving control? What's the mix, and what does it look like, and how is it evolving over time? And this is beautifully depicted in the technology that we have, and that's the next frontier for us, to take this technology, first of all, hopefully to the region, and then globally. As a Sri Lankan company, we are the first to crack this ceiling, and we continue to keep doing it every year, and we are not planning on stopping anytime soon.